does, he will cut this opposition, which is the main opposition of Judaism, by another cutting. He will cutting the cutting. He will cut the cutting. He will say Jew, non-Jew, but then we will have Jews who are Jews according to the flesh, this is considered, but are not Jews according to the spirit. And you have Gentiles, non-Jews, who are not Jews according to the flesh, but are Jews according to the spirit. So in this way, he neutralized and again produced a third which was excluded, because the division, the Jewish division, was absolutely like that. Either Jew, either non-Jew. There is no third. That's clear. How can there is no possible third. But yeah, in this way, he produces this third that after was called the Christian, but never forget that he didn't know the term Christian. That's a falsification made by the church. He never would have called Christian this, but Christian meant for him only Messianic, if you have the term. But anyway, you see, he neutralized an opposition, and when in relationship to the law, he makes the same thing, but using a term which is very interesting for us. As you know, Paul writes in Greek. So he will use this Greek term, catharsis, which comes from a Greek term, argos, which means inoperative. Deactivated, without... So the catharsis is the making inoperative. For which problem does he create this concept? He has to think the relationship between the law, the Torah, the Jewish law, and the Messiah. According to the Jewish tradition, when the Messiah comes, the law is abolished, destroyed. No, it doesn't say abolished, it doesn't say destroyed. He says made inoperative.
It says what?
Made inoperative.
Okay.
Argos, catharsis. What the Messiah does, he will not. Sometimes in the Latin translation of the whole letters, you will find this abolish. You say the Messiah. Paul is saying the Messiah destroys the law. That's false. Never. The Greek term means makes inoperative, neutralize. But the law, the Torah is there. A Jew couldn't imagine the not existence of the Torah. But the Torah, which is commanded with its commandment, is neutralized. So we have a Torah, but no commandments that you have to fulfill. A different approach to the Torah. Yes?
In fact, Jesus said, I came to fulfill the law.
Yeah, that's why. But
Paul said,
again, but Paul
I think Jesus stayed a Jew. Paul made him into a Christian.
Yeah, but in a way, there I think Paul is truthful to Paul, because Jesus say fulfill, but then this also is an old Jewish tradition. The Messiah fulfills the law, but if the law is fulfilled, it's neutralized, it's finished. No? The law is already fulfilled.
Since this is arising out of the extension of the Homo Soccer project, I'm wondering if the introduction of the term sovereign or sovereignty is appropriate at this moment. When talking particularly about this example of the arrival of the Messiah, law becomes neutralized because of the sovereignty of the new, because of the sovereignty of the new sovereign who is introduced, who's outside of it and then reestablishes it. Is this the dynamic that you're trying to describe?
No, I didn't think it would be the concept of sovereignty, because you mean that in Jewish tradition the Messiah is a king. That's
Right.
what's implied.
Right.
Yeah, but then he has to think the relationship between this Messiah and the law, and just stick to this relationship, which he will express by this term, make it inoperative. And what I wanted to underline is what is a law that is still there but made inoperative. That's very similar, it seems to me, to what Benin writes in relation to Kafka stories, when he say a law which is no more applied, so it's no more in rule, but it is only studied. This law is the door of justice. And in a way, it's also what, in some way, certain current in Judaism has done, because what the rabbinic Judaism did is to abolish the Torah concerning the sacrifice in the temple. The temple did not exist, and they substituted to the Torah the Talmud Torah, the study of the Torah. The rabbi now study the Torah, and they still study the completely useless prescription concerning sacrifice. So if you open the Talmud, you will have a whole book concerning all the prescription concerning the sacrifice in the temple. But the temple does not exist anymore, the sacrifice does not exist anymore, so the sacrifice is completely neutralized, but they studied. So why I say this, it's interesting to imagine we live in a society completely determined by the model of the law. You agree on that? Total ethics. Juridical and also non-juridical. And then if you say, I want to abolish the law, that's very easy to say, but what do you mean? It's not, it's impossible. But it's interesting to think a different use of law. So law is still there, but like the Jew did, now it's no more applied in the sense of the obligation, but it's studied. So in this sense we can imagine a neutralization of law which opens it to a different usage. Still there, but different usage.
I just want to make sure I've understood your understanding of Jewish history. Are you saying that the destruction of the temple, I don't know what the right word is, led to a transformation of Pharisaic Judaism into rabbinic Judaism? And I think the aporia for me is this coincides, not coincidentally, with Jesus and particularly Paul's construction of Jesus.
Yeah, not perfectly, because of distraction, but that's what happened. No? What happened in Judaism is that the Talmud Torah took the place of the Torah. Because the Torah was mainly a prescription about sacrifices. Then, as always happens, the commandments went back in different ways, no more in the sacrifice, but in other fields, etc. No? Like the church did. The church was based on a text to neutralize the law, and then they absolutely reintroduced the law. It's always like that. Never this attempt to neutralize the law was really kept. Both in Judaism and in Christianism, this very interesting attempt to neutralize the law was not kept. It was substituted by a new law.
But is that this? Okay, so now I'm not getting the logical difference here. If the existing law is neutralized and replaced with something else, these are not identical, right?
No, that what the Christians say. Vetus lex, nova lex. The old Jew law is substituted by the new Christian law. But this is not truthful to what was in Jesus and Paul. It was not to create a new law after the old one, but to neutralize the old one.
And then, or neutralize the old one, or neutralize it, amplify it in some ways, alter it in others. Suppress some.
There is no idea of a new law. This was invented by the church.
Okay, so we're only talking now in terms of religious law then? Okay,
Speaking about
that's fine.
all
All right, I thought we conflated the law and the big L.
Shall we make a break? Otherwise we will not have the time. So in order to continue to try to better understand this concept of form of life, now make some consideration on the concept life itself in our culture. Anyone who undertakes a serious investigation, genealogical investigation, a kind of genealogy of the concept of life in our culture, will always meet with two very important facts that in some way determine the way the concept of life works in our culture. The first one then is that, contrary to what we modern could imagine, the concept of life in Western culture is not a medical scientific concept. What do I mean? If you take the Corpus Hippocraticum, which is the whole corpus of all the texts concerning Greek medicine. So it's in the modern edition is 12 huge volumes. You will imagine that the concept of life, zoe, is present there. So the whole complex of the Greek medicine. In these 12 huge